And we're back now with the Attorney General, Eric Holder. Mr. Attorney General, what is your current thinking on what is to be done with the 9/11 mastermind, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed? You at first were going to try him in New York. Now it appears that he's going to be tried someplace else. Where are you on this?
Well, no decision's been made yet as to exactly where the trial is going to occur. What we want to do is to hold accountable as effectively as we can the people who are responsible for what happened on September the 11th. We've had to deal with a variety of things, funding and dealing with Congress, the concerns that have been expressed by local officials. We're trying to work our way through that, and as soon as we can, we will make a decision as to where that trial will occur. But we're bound and determined to hold Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and those who worked with him, hold them responsible for what happened on September 11th.
Have you decided yet whether it'll be before a military tribunal or a civilian court?
We are still in the process of considering that as well. The recommendation I made was that it should be done in a civilian court.
Are you still leaning in that direction?
That is something that we are in the process still of working our way through.
Can I ask you the obvious question? Mm-hmm. What is taking so long to make this decision?
Well, I mean, there were certainly unanticipated things that happened. One looks at the way in which Congress has looked at this and the question of whether or not we will have sufficient funding in order to bring these cases. There have been restrictions that have been talked about by Congress, some of which have been imposed. We're going to have to work with Congress in order, I think, ultimately to bring this case to trial. And I think that given the magnitude of what happened on September the 11th and the need to bring justice and closure to this, that people in Congress need to work with us in the executive branch to come up with a way in which we can put these people on trial. Justice has been denied too long.
Well, this controversy now that goes on and on and on, some argue that a person, that these people that many people feel are not criminals, that they're military combatants, that they should not be read their rights. They should not enjoy all the rights that those of us in America have. Why can't you try them before a military tribunal?
I look at it the other way. Why can't we use a great criminal justice system that has proven effective in these kinds of cases over the years, that has proven effective in a wide range of cases over the last 200 years? Why can't we use that system? It is that system that we have often said distinguishes us from other countries. It's one that I'm extremely proud of and one that I think is extremely capable of. We've tried over 300 terrorists in our criminal justice system. We've gotten very long sentences where that was appropriate. There have been a really limited number of people who have been tried in the military tribunals, which is not to say that they should not be used. But at the exclusion, I think if we try to exclude the federal criminal justice system, we are taking away one of the tools that we have, and I think ultimately we make this nation much weaker. That's a very dangerous thing, I think, to take that tool out of our hands.
There was some talk at one point that you might move this trial to perhaps a military base in Virginia. Is that still an option?
There are any number of possibilities that we are considering, and we have not made any final decisions.
Can you, in fact, seek the death penalty when you take someone before a military tribunal? I know you can in a civilian court, because I've had some lawyers tell me that might not be possible.
You can certainly seek the death penalty. There is real question as to whether or not somebody can plead guilty and get the death penalty on the military side. You can certainly do that in a civilian setting.
But you might not be able to do that if they plead guilty in a military tribunal.
Military tribunal, right. There's real question about that.
It's interesting that nobody has made much of that this has become so controversial. I'm surprised that those of you who favor the civilian trials haven't said to some who want to put these people before a military tribunal, but look, we might not be able to get the death penalty.
One of the things I think that is particularly bothersome to me is that this really has become something that has become political. The politicization of this issue when we're dealing with ultimate national security issues is something that disturbs me a great deal. We're dealing with the deaths of 3,000 people on September the 11th. We're dealing with the mastermind of the 9/11 attacks, a person who was a key part of Al-Qaeda. And to have Republicans and Democrats arguing about this in a political way, as opposed to dealing with the substance that we have to really focus on, is something that I think is regrettable and has resulted, I think, in the delays that we have seen.
One of the president's first acts when he became president was to say that he would close Guantanamo, our prison facility, within a year. Guantanamo is still open. When is that question going to be resolved? And is that, in fact, any more a priority for the administration?
It is still a priority. Guantanamo serves as a recruiting tool for al-Qaeda. The intelligence shows that, continues to show that that is true. It has served as a wedge between us and our traditional allies. We have done all that we can to try to close Guantanamo. I think people have to understand we've done a substantial amount of work. When we started there were 240 people who were in Guantanamo. We're down to about 180. We have looked at each one of those prisoners who are there, each one of those detainees, and made individualized determinations as to what ought to happen to them. Those who can be tried, those who can be repatriated, those who will be detained under the laws of war. That has been done. Again, we need Congress to come up with an alternative facility. We've identified one in Illinois, the Thompson facility, that we think we could bring people to. We've not gotten the funding from Congress in order to do that, but this is still a priority for this administration.
Do you think that this decision will be made before the November elections?
We have made the decision. This is something that we want to do. We need congressional support in order to do it. We have put in the request that we have for the 2011 budget, money to acquire the Thompson facility and to change at least a portion of it so that we could hold people that are now in Guantanamo, hold them in that facility. We need Congress to appropriate the money to do it.
At this point, Congress has not been willing to do that. Do you have any state other than Illinois, I guess it is, that says that they would be willing to do this? And I don't think that's even certain, is it? Is there any place else that has agreed they'd be willing to have this facility?
We actually have had expressions of interest from a couple of other states. I don't want to necessarily talk about them now because I think we have a very firm commitment from the people in Thompson and from state officials in Illinois that they are willing to convert a portion of that facility that is underused and would be sold to the federal government for the detention of people who are now held in Guantanamo.
You know, I remember during the campaign, Senator Obama said he wanted to close Guantanamo. Senator McCain said that he wanted to close Guantanamo. And I think those of us in the press bear a little responsibility in all of this because we forgot to ask the follow-up, how are you going to do it? Has it not proven to be a lot more difficult than you thought it was?
Well, it's proven more difficult because there have been people who have changed their positions. I think, as you said, Senator McCain certainly was in favor of closing Guantanamo. President Bush has expressed a desire to close Guantanamo. Our military leaders have indicated a desire to close Guantanamo. Those people who are on the front lines have said Guantanamo should be closed. This is another instance where I think politics, unfortunately, has entered into this discussion. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. We have proven an ability to hold in our federal prison system people convicted of, charged with terrorist offenses very effectively, very safely. There's no reason to believe that people held in Guantanamo cannot be held wherever we put them in the United States, again, very safely and very effectively. And so it is our hope that we will be able to persuade Congress to give us the ability to open that Thompson facility.
You know, early on in the administration, you created quite a stir when you said in a speech that we'd become a nation of cowards because we weren't talking enough about race. A lot of people criticized you for that. A lot of people applauded you for saying that. Are you sorry now that you said that, or what exactly did you mean by that, and how do you feel today after some time has passed?
I mean, I think that ours is a great nation, but one of the great things that we have always we've always wrestled with from the inception of this nation is the question of race. If one looks at the history of this country in the 19th century, race was, I think, the dominant issue. You look at the history of this country in the 20th century, race was one of the dominant issues. It remains an issue that I think still divides us. And if you look at the demographic changes this nation is about to undergo, we have to have, I believe, an open and honest discussion about race, ethnicity. The diversity that we are about to see, an unprecedented diversity in this country, can be a great source of strength for this nation, but if not dealt with appropriately, can also be something that is very divisive. And what I was trying to say in that speech is that we should be honest with one another and not feel that we have to retreat into our cocoons and only say that which we consider to be safe, that we ought to have the strength of character to say that which we really feel, and people who are receiving it should understand that those things are said in good faith, to just have an open, honest dialogue about something that I think for too long we have not been willing to discuss.
Do you see any sign that we are doing better on that?
No, slightly. I think certainly that speech that I gave generated some conversation. I'm not sure I heard all the applause that you were talking about with regard to those remarks. I think perhaps we are getting to a place where, a better place. I think the fact that we have an African American as president, perhaps an African American as an attorney general, is a spur in that regard. But I think there's still a lack of desire, and understandable, I think, in some ways. People feel uncomfortable talking about racial issues out of fear that if they express things, they will be characterized in a way that's not fair. I think that there is still a need for a dialogue about things racial that we've not engaged in.
Mr. Attorney General, thank you for being with us in Aspen.
Thank you.
On Face the Nation.